In this episode of Entrepreneur TV podcast, we had the privilege of meeting, and I had the privilege of interviewing Jason, who runs a company called Goito. But his story to get to Goito is absolutely fantastic. Starting from when he was in a band and just missed out on a record deal, to then going on and forming a business and taking that business to 35 staff with a £5 million turnover. His journey from there to where he is today, you're going to really find of great interest. So stay tuned for this episode of Entrepreneur TV. I want you to take me back because you were a musician, and I've done a podcast with a guy that was in the music industry. I work with guys in the music, so I'm fascinated because you're one of them stories that was a musician that nearly made it, but we know the band that did make it over you. Tell me the story of that journey.
So although I'd been doing music in some form or another pretty much since I left college in the 80s, but in the 90s I was working with a guy who was a very, very talented musician, and we recorded an awful lot of material and put out some demos, and I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it was the sort of latter part of the 90s, I think, and we got a call from V2. V2 had been set up by Richard Branson after he sold Virgin to EMI, and he really missed having a label. So they were looking for their kind of first signing for a sort of flagship act. So it's very exciting because we got shortlisted down to the last two, as I understand it. And unfortunately, the other band was the Stereophonics. So obviously, you know what happened.
Who we've all heard of now.
Exactly, yeah. So we just missed out on that. I had a bit of a rant at them, I have to say, after that about, we were a little bit more left field, a little bit more experimental. Yeah. And we were a studio band. We didn't do a lot of live performance, mainly because we needed so much equipment. Sure. Whereas they'd been gigging a lot and had a following. So I always thought that they went for the safer bet. But, looking at it, it was probably a good call. Stereophonics did okay.
How did that make you feel? Because I've been in the music industry as well, and I see so many people that have got that close to making it, and when they get dropped at the last minute, it can send them in a total different direction in life.
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, we didn't stop making music, but I think we stopped chasing the dream of being signed and earning our living from it. We just started to do it for the pure joy of it. And I think we let go of that at that point, and both decided that we needed to get a proper job, which I did. So you became an employee at this point? Or I did. It was quite a strange, this is quite an interesting story actually, because I did a bit of temp work in a company. I think I was just database inputting, and I thought, right, I need to get a proper job. And I'd remembered years ago meeting this guy who was selling bifold doors, so like 3 or 4 years previously, and I got on with him. And I thought, what was the name of his company? I was thinking, and I kid you not, I'm standing outside having a cigarette, thinking about this, and their van literally pulls up in front of me, and I went, that's it. And I took the number down and just gave him a call and got a job. It was that simple.
As quick as that?
Just like that, yeah. I think we met once for a coffee. We just negotiated it and started work for them.
And then there came a point where you left that company?
Yes, I was working for them for a couple of years, and I had seen the potential with the glazing products they had. Bifold doors were kind of just starting to pick up in the UK, and there was a lot of interest, and they were getting a lot of traction. and I thought it'd be a really good time to do something on my own with this.
Did you have any business skill at this point?
No, well, I had no experience in running a business. No, not at all.
So 100% winging it and thinking, I can do this.
Absolutely winging it. Yeah, absolutely. I knew that there was a company, or I'd seen the products of a company, a Swiss company called Sun Paradise. And I just contacted them and asked them if they would be interested in representation in the UK. We went over to see them, we went over to Zurich, and then they took us over to their factory in Turkey where I met the owner. And they basically offered us an exclusive contract there and then and gave us a credit limit and just said, yeah, off you go.
So you've now got the manufacturer in place.
Yeah.
But how do you get sales?
Well, I'd built up a few contacts with architects. At that time, we were really getting specifications from architects, and the architects were pushing product to the client and this kind of thing. So I had a lot of contacts, and I just let everyone know what I was doing. And I think we got our first order within about a week, and it was quite a decent order actually. And it just went from there really.
And what was the order that you got in for? Was it for an office building? Was it a house?
I think the first one was for a conservatory, and then I'd actually been to Ilpai Island, and I'd met a guy there who was building some offices in what was an old boatyard, and he was also doing something very funky with a boat. He was trying to build this kind of glass structure to make that his headquarters, floating on the river, which is very nice. And he gave me that job to do the boat, and he said, if you do that well, you'll get the offices. And doing the boat was like really, really hard, but I had a great fitter. But it was extremely difficult because you can't get level because the boat was moving about.
It was rocking all the time.
Yeah. But we pulled it off, and it was it was really well executed actually. And then he gave us the offices, and that was fantastic because he was doing I think 4 sets of bifold doors every month, which gave us enough income at that time for me to pay myself and my sister who I'd employed.
So there was just you, your sister, and a fitter?
Yeah, and my business partner.
How did you grow the business?
It was very organic, actually. I mean, we seemed to draw a lot of attention to ourselves. I don't know. This is the thing. I look back and I think, how we got so much so quickly. It was like word of mouth. People would be really happy with what we did, and in the architectural community, I guess people would talk about it. People would recommend us, and then we did an exhibition. We pulled the stops out and spent what we had on producing quite a funky stand at the home building show, and it was so successful. People were actually queuing up to come on our stand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I remember saying to my business partner, I said, we'll never look back from this. And we really didn't. I mean, from that point onwards, we almost had more orders than we could handle constantly. And we were constantly just getting the staff in to try and deal with it.
How did you find the right staff? Because finding the right people to come into a business is one of the most difficult things that businesses can do.
Yeah, absolutely. It just, we'd go to recruitment agencies, and sometimes I'd meet people in a pub and be chatting to someone.
Sometimes the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I'd be chatting to someone and thinking, you know what, they would be really good at this particular job or whatever. And I think it's just intuition. I mean, we didn't get it right every time, but actually we developed a pretty good team. Certainly our sales team were fantastic. And I think also there was such a nice feeling in the office we had on the island, because we took one of the offices that we'd done for this guy.
The customer.
Yeah,
so you rented from him, did you direct?
Yep, I rented from him. And I also lived in a boat, which I rented off of him as well, which was moored up right next to the offices. But there was such a nice atmosphere and such a nice feeling in the office, and I think that kind of drew in the right people. And customers would get that as well. I think that was something that really helped us, as they'd come in. People always have a great experience.
And that's a lot of companies and businesses, they miss the mark when it comes to providing a great experience with customers, I think.
I agree, yeah, absolutely.
And as a result of that, it results in people can lose their jobs because if the customers think, this is a crap company to deal with. But you never had that because you started expanding and getting more staff, and at this point, how many staff did you employ?
I mean, we went from having, like you say, just myself and my sister, and I think within 3 or 4 years, we had 35 staff.
It's a lot of people.
It is, yeah.
To be responsible for.
Yeah, and that was one of the toughest things, actually.
And what was the feeling? Did you ever go home at night and think, God, I've got 35 people to look after here?
No, I didn't actually. I was although I'd come to it, I suppose some people would say late in life, in my early 30s when I first started my first business. I was, I'd spent my time making music, so in terms of business, I was really green. And honestly just thought, wow, this is great, this is easy. And we were making so much money, actually, for, when you compare to what you can do now in the glazing industry.
How much money was the company making at this point?
Well, we had £1 million on deposit.
Just on deposits?
Yeah. That's so not even in our sort of day-to-day cash flow. We just every so often we just bank 100,000, and it just grew very, very quickly. So I honestly just I wasn't worried. I was very, very I was probably quite arrogant really at the time. Just thinking like, wow, this is
which sometimes is a good thing because you're focused on the drive of the business than worrying about the business. I know you've got to keep your eyes on the ball, but sometimes when you just let loose a wee bit, when you've got a no carefree attitude, things get done.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly, yeah, and certainly there was a lot of drive coming from us, from myself and my business partner. Certainly in the early years, it was very, very enthusiastic, really, really enjoying ourselves, actually.
When did it start to go wrong?
Well, there was, I think it was around 2008, there was what they called the credit crunch, which turned into quite a big crash in the end. At first we were quite worried, but we didn't actually drop exactly in business, but we stopped growing. We plateaued. And it stayed like that for 2 or 3 years. We sort of stuck at 5 million turnover, and it's only latterly that I sort of realised. I think somebody said to me, "If your company's not growing, it's probably collapsing." And I think that's
probably true.
Well, I think so. Yeah. There's no such thing as a company that just sits and just ticks over. It's either going to be pushing forward or it's going to be starting to fall backwards.
How was your mental health at this point? Because I'd imagine when your business is getting stagnant and it's no growing, did anybody know there was trouble brewing? Not
immediately. I mean, in 2008 as well, I got married, I had my daughter was born. I was kind of focused on that, and it probably took my eye off the ball a little bit. And what we didn't notice was what was happening outside of our business in terms of competitor activity. There are a lot of people copying us, and a lot of people doing it in their own way and doing things cheaper. And we just really hadn't picked up on what was going on. And that, in the end, was the thing that brought us down. Was just not having our eye on the ball, just not being aware of what was going on around us.
When was the crunch moment that you knew, shit, I'm in trouble?
Well, that money we had on deposit slowly started to come down after being built up. So every so often we'd transfer a bit back into the company, thinking, this is just temporary cash flow, it'll be all right. But then you sort of look at it and you go, what's actually happening is we're running out of money. Which is a bit of a shocker when you just took for granted that it would always be there and you'd always be making more. And the thing is, it's a bit like trying to turn around an oil tanker when you suddenly realise that, because the company had grown to such a size, and to try to turn it round, to save it, was really hard work, and actually costs a lot of money because,
Yeah.
you know, if you need to slim down your staff, you know, you've got to pay people redundancy. You have to go through quite a long process to do that.
And how did you feel when you had to pull people in and say, look?
Well, it was really,
go,
really very unpleasant. Yeah, it was not something that I was enjoying at all. You know, formerly we'd just spent our time bringing new people in, and we were always growing, and that's always an exciting time. And suddenly, when you're doing the opposite of that, yeah, it's hard.
So, when you went home at night, this carefree attitude that you had, was this changing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I tried not to allow it to envelop me completely. You know, I still had a young family. I was focused on that, and I was focused on saving the company at the end of the day. So, you know, I still had to maintain an element of positivity. So I shrugged it off as much as I could.
You said earlier you had a warehouse that you were thinking of selling that and putting that money into the business.
Yeah, that's right. That was our we put together a kind of rescue package, myself and my business partner, and we presented that to banks and all sorts, and everyone was kind of agreed on it. But at the very last minute, my business partner decided it wasn't for him, and he didn't want to do it. He just wanted to cash out, and I think it was in
cash out on a business that's just stumbling downwards.
He just wanted to get out of it. He just had enough.
That was a warning sign that that's not a very good business partner.
Well, you know, I you know, at the end of the day, he you know, he had to make his own decision on that, and I didn't feel I could do it on my own, and I certainly couldn't do it without his without that warehouse being sold, and he was a joint owner of it. So yeah, we had to hand it over to the administrator in 2013.
And what did you do that day? Once you'd handed it over, you walked away from a business that's doing 5 million turnover, 35 staff. You've now walked it. How are you as a person? When I say that, you've obviously had a day where it could affect your mental health, but they turn around and say sometimes that an event like that can make you as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first feeling was being quite scared, being quite uncertain. After we kind of signed off, I had to go meet the remaining staff with the administrator for him to announce to them that they'd all lost their jobs and this was it. And that was a really horrible day. You know, these people that I'd worked with for a few years and I'd got quite close with. What
would you have changed? What could you have done differently that could have changed that scenario?
I just would have paid much more attention to what was going on around me, seen the warning signs earlier, definitely, than I did. Because I think at the time we you know, I did really pick up on things going on a downhill until the momentum was a bit too much by the time I really realised what was happening.
What happened next? What's the next step of the story? So you've left the company.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone.
Yeah. Well,
what's next?
There was another issue because, of course, people had paid deposits to Sun Paradise and potentially lost their money. So that didn't sit well with me either. And I got together with a colleague who was one of the sales guys at the company. And we formed a business, to try and go forward with, but also to try and pick up. What we did is we worked out that if we could persuade everybody to pay the balance of their money, we could actually execute all the projects and come out with about 10 grand profit or something at the end.
Were you allowed to do that though if it's in receivership?
We were allowed to buy the database and a few bits of stock and things from the receiver. Yeah, we did a deal with him to do that. So we contacted all of the customers of Sun Paradise who had potentially lost money. They'd all been informed by that time.
Okay.
So course, I'd phone up and say, "Oh, hi, I'm Jason. I'm the director of Sun Paradise." And the first thing that would happen is I'd get a lot of abuse thrown at me down the phone. But then once I'd explained, look, we're trying to finish all this. So some people had paid 30%. Some people had paid 90%. So we were having.
So you're trying to do the right thing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was quite important to me to at least give it a best shot,
which is unheard of. When I say unheard of, a lot of people at this point in their life who've got this business, 35 staff, 5 million turnover, in receivership, everybody's fired, would throw the towel in and say, I'm at the end, there's nothing, my mental health is now done. I'm finished with this. That's a part of my chapter. But you said, no, I want to change this and do the right thing. How did that go?
It was 3 months of pure hell, actually. And that probably affected my mental health more than anything, because the amount of abuse and the mistrust coming from, which is totally understandable.
Yeah.
But in the end, we managed most of it. I think most of the customers got what they'd originally paid for. We'd done a deal with the supplier, but I mean, by this time, our supplier in Switzerland was very, very careful with us, and we had to pay everything before they'd ship anything.
Sure, yeah.
And we had to persuade customers who'd already theoretically lost money to part with more money before they got anything from us. So it was very, very difficult time.
Did you do it?
Yeah. But I was really burnt out afterwards.
I bet you were.
And I was like, I'm not going to have a company that deals with the public ever again. Because my phone had been like red hot. I was getting so many calls every day.
Yeah.
And so much abuse. But like I say, in the end, it worked out. But I was absolutely knackered after that.
Burnt out, yeah. So, burnt out, company's gone, you've dealt with everybody.
Yeah.
Did you take a 2-week vacation before you did anything else?
No, I didn't. I just had to. Well, I had a young family. I had to earn money. So we continued. Myself and this colleague, we continued that company. And what we decided to do was not try and recreate what we had before. We just wanted to keep something quite small. Work with a few clients that we had good relationships with.
Yeah.
Developers and a couple of architects. This kind of thing. So not, and we thought there's only 2 of us. We don't need many jobs to produce a reasonable income. And that worked quite well for a while.
And that brings me on to Gito.
Yeah.
Tell me how that was born.
So, one of the things that we did a couple of 2 or 3 years ago was we tried to sell our bifold doors in the USA. We sold a few, and we thought, well, let's give it a try. Let's take it out there, because I just had the feeling that the USA was very much where the UK was back in the late 90s when I'd started selling these doors, and they were just getting a little bit of interest from the public. So we took it over there, and because we were going to the USA, my opposite number in Turkey, who runs the factory there, who was building our stuff, decided to put a fly screen onto the doors. Something
Which
else.
I think is pretty common in the United States.
Absolutely, yeah. Practically every door window has a fly screen, yeah.
And your objective, was it to sell in the United States and join that market, or bring it over here?
Just to see, just because we were there, because we had a bifold door, we thought, well, let's put a fly screen on it, and maybe people will buy the door and the fly screen together. It's a little bit of added income to have that.
Okay.
And of course, we're out there really trying to flog the doors. But most people took an interest in the fly screen, because apparently it was it was a product that they even America, who use fly screens all the time, even they were quite intrigued by it, about what it was capable of doing. Going 3 meters width in one piece, this kind of thing. And so what I took away from that was just, okay, there's actually quite a good product here. Maybe I can sell it in America, and it just went into the back of my mind, ticking over. And then I was on a visit to Turkey to see the factory over there, and we were sat at my friend's apartment, and it's got a long living room with a balcony all the way along it, and these glass sliding doors. It was a really, really hot evening. The doors were open, the fly screen was pulled across, we had the lights on inside, and there was not one insect in there. And it was really lovely just having this cool breeze coming off the Bosphorus.
Just to be clear, because we've all experienced it, when you've got a door open, you know if a fly comes in or a wasp comes in.
Yeah.
So you're in Turkey, you notice nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, I was aware that there was nothing because you'd expect it, when you've got the doors open in the evening with the lights on inside, you just expect to see.
Because that's what we are used to here as well.
Exactly. And I just thought, well, this is actually quite luxurious. I thought there must be a market for this in the UK because even myself, I work at home now and we've got 2 sets of doors like opposite my desk. When I have them open in the summer, it just fills up with flies, they're buzzing around my desk. And I bet they're a distraction, and it would be nicer not to have them inside. So I just thought, well, look, it's got to be worth the shot at trying to sort of push this into the UK.
So you've come back from Turkey.
Yeah.
And you've now got this in your mind that what you've just experienced. How did you put that into practice?
First thing I did was I thought, right, I want to create a brand. This idea of a brand had come to me, and it's something I'd never really done before. That we have a name, we have a company that's synonymous with this product. That as it grows in the UK, hopefully people will think of it as a Gito screen,
Where did you come up with the name?
Well, it's a family business, as I call it. And I was really discussing it with my wife, with my children. And my son came up with Go Mosquito or Go Mosquito. And we just played around with that and shortened it and made a zuz sound in the middle, and we got Gito, which is kind of a nice short...
It's clever.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best names come from kids because they're not too deep into thinking.
That's right, yeah.
They're straight to the point and telling you how things are.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've come up with a name.
Yep.
You now know the product. Now you've got to sell it.
That's right.
What's that stage?
So we set it up. We set the website up. We kind of launched properly in August last year. And we sold a few toward the end of last year. And then just January this year, it really started to pick up. Inquiries started to pick up. We were spending money with Google, obviously, to get the inquiries.
For the website?
Yeah.
And how much are you spending with Google?
We're able to bring you these interviews and amazing stories thanks to the businesses who sponsor us. Sponsoring this episode is Gito, owned by Jason, who is being featured on this episode. Remember to visit their website and support their business. The link is in the description. Introducing Gito Fly Screens, the innovative solution for your bifold and sliding door needs. Our versatile design can be seamlessly retrofitted to existing doors and windows, letting you enjoy fresh air whilst keeping bugs at bay. Eco-friendly and bee-saving with up to a 10-year guarantee. Plus, we're proud to donate 2% of our turnover to Bug Life. Embrace convenience and sustainability with Gito. Visit gazito.co.uk today.
Inquiries.
For the website?
Yeah.
And how much are you spending with Google?
Thousands. No, it's probably a couple of thousand a month now on pay-per-click campaigns.
Okay.
But we get a lot of inquiries from that.
And that's what you want. That's what it's for. Yeah.
We need the exposure.
Plus, you've got the experience behind you now.
Yeah.
From your previous company.
Yeah.
Are you looking to get 35 staff again?
I definitely feel ready to build this. Yeah. And this time also we're manufacturing, which is something I've never done before.
So you're doing the manufacturing, is that here in Britain or overseas? Or?
Yeah, here in the UK.
Oh wow, okay.
So not all of them as yet. But we've started. We're doing some of them here. Obviously my goal is to bring all the manufacturing to the UK, yeah.
How do you feel inside yourself, because you've had all this experience with business? You've now got the new Gito. And what I'm trying to say is, do you think, this is it, and you're putting all your experience into it?
Yeah.
I don't mean, oh, this is it, this is the last chance saloon. I mean, are you excited again if you get that fire in your belly about business?
Yes, exactly. I'm really enjoying this.
And that's important to enjoy it, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's a really nice product, and it's a luxury product, and customers are really happy when they've got it. Like it gives people a really nice feeling. I don't know. There's something about it. It's just something that, you know, when people have it and they get it.
I think because it's not just a quality product, it's a product that stops the one thing that's annoying in Britain in summer.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Well, the people have bought all these bifold doors, sliding doors, and a lot of the people say to me, the customers say to me, well, you know, I've got all this, and I don't open them in the summer because we just get swarmed with flies. You know, particularly people on waterside properties or with rural areas with farms behind and this kind of thing, which is where people want to have big glass openings.
To have them, yeah.
And they don't use them because of that. So as we say in our literature, you know, it allows you to use the product you wanted in the way you imagined, because you can actually have it open on those days where it's hot.
Family behind you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My wife is very supportive. She helps out a lot as well.
So she's hands-on in the business.
Yeah. Because we at the moment, you know, we're a small company. We pick up all the screens every month or every couple of weeks from our warehouse, bring them back, make sure they're all wrapped properly, do a bit of extra wrapping on them maybe, and dispatch them. And she gets very involved in that, hands-on and this kind of thing. Yeah.
And the one thing I got from you, the conversation with the previous business, was customer service was so important.
Yeah.
Have you brought that into this business?
Absolutely. The same thing I thought at the beginning with Sun Paradise is still true now, which is if customers have a good experience when they interact with your company, the money and things will follow that. That's the prime. If you're focused on people having a really positive experience, that will always work, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
What skills do you think you've taken from your previous self-employed business that you had absolutely no experience in when you winged it? What have you learned now that you're a bit older and you've started this? What do you think in yourself? That's a hard question. Yeah,
well, first of all, I'm much more frugal than I was back then, especially with company money. Very, very careful with it, you know. My accountant always says to me, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is reality. So I think
which is absolutely right.
It's definitely true. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very, very careful. I've always got my eye on that. And the first person, although I say employed, is actually self-employed, but the first person I got was a bookkeeper to really just be able to get me figures. Yep. Get me figures, so I can just see what's going on. That's something I didn't do before. Certainly not in the early days. Just to keep my eye on what's going on, because what I do know is that if the success that we're having at the moment continues and it does grow, people will copy us. So you always have to keep a little bit ahead. You've always got to find new ways and new things to do to push your company forward and keep it out front.
So the thing that you never kept your eye on before, you're now on the ball, keeping your eye on now, and improving all the time and keeping things close to your chest as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is the key to the success of any business.
Yeah, indeed.
How are things going, and how do you predict things to be going in the next number of years? Because this is it for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 100% all in, where do you see it going?
Well, I would like it to be obviously the manufacturing side is a big thing. In fact, I was really thinking about what the definition of Gito is. Is it a manufacturer? Is it a sales company? What is it? And I think primarily it's going to be a manufacturer. Obviously, what I'm intending to do is to have regional distributors, resellers.
It sounds to me like the perfect franchise.
Yeah.
That you could release it as a franchise as well, and others could learn from what you've built up, because people starting a business are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You've made them, so you can offer that as a franchise and supply them with a quality product and teach them how to keep good customer service. Is that something you'd consider?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. That is a way that I'm considering moving forward, for sure. It seems to, yeah, it makes sense to me.
And it's a high growth strategy, and it also brings passive income.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of franchises charge a monthly fee, and as they say, cash flow is king as well, because it's sanity.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
What advice would you give to anybody thinking about starting a business in 2024 in the United Kingdom who's starting for the first time? Watching this video thinking, I'm thinking of starting a business, I'm going to watch this video and maybe I can learn something. What's some top tip that you would give?
Well, I think, as I've already said, the first thing is to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're focused on whoever your customers are, whether you're B2B, whether you're going to the public, whatever, that the focus is on giving them something that is going to be positive for them. Whether you're doing something that's already exists, but doing it better, faster, whatever it is, I think, yeah, that's got to be the focus, because if that's the focus, everything else will follow on from that.
What a fantastic episode, and what a fantastic guy to have the privilege of doing an interview with on a podcast. It's guys like this that this is what this is all about. You know, getting into the heart of how business works and how you can transform yourself from that journey that he's been through to really starting again and really trailing forward with his new business, Gito. One of the things I'd also like to say as well is Jason gives a percentage of his profits to the organisation Bug Life. So he's not just helping himself, he's helping, you know, the environment and people who look after, you know, bees and insects and other things as well. But one of the things I'd like to say is, in the description below is the website for Gito. Go and pay them a visit, buy from them, use them, because it's guys like this that are genuine. They deserve to really be successful because they've walked the walk, they've done that journey, doing the best that they can and offering the best customer service. And that's very unique to find, you know, but his journey, his honesty, that alone deserves your sales. If you're interested in also franchising with Jason, have a conversation with him. I'm sure he'd be up for having a chat. If you want to be a reseller, you know, where you can possibly, you know, sell his fly screens and products, you know, phone him, have a chat with him, email him, get in touch with him through his website, because he's reachable and he will communicate with you. Well, that's all for this episode of Entrepreneur TV. But we're going to finish with a TV commercial for Jason and his company Gito. See you next time.
Introducing Gito Fly Screens, the innovative solution for your bifold and sliding door needs. Our versatile design can be seamlessly retrofitted to existing doors and windows, letting you enjoy fresh air whilst keeping bugs at bay. Eco-friendly and bee-saving with up to a 10-year guarantee. Plus, we're proud to donate 2% of our turnover to Bug Life. Embrace convenience and sustainability with Gito. Visit gazito.co.uk today.